Good evening, America. Happy Monday. Welcome to the latest edition of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you as always from Washington, D.C. and the WiredToFishCoffee.com studios. Wired to Fish Coffee, you know this, official coffee of Just the News, favorite coffee of my family. You can go right now to WiredToFishCoffee.com. That's Wired, the number 2, FishCoffee.com, and get a fantastic 10% discount on all of their great blends as well as the great mugs and ornaments. They got some great fishing ornaments. The Just the News tumbler, a must get. You got to go check that out. Use the promo code JustNews at checkout. You get 10% off. All right, we start tonight with what President Trump declared was one of the most important executive orders in the country's history. His order to lower prescription drug costs in America, and it's all part of an America First agenda. The president says that for too long, the United States has been paying premiums for medications, essentially subsidizing other countries in Europe and around the world who put price caps on their drugs or directly negotiate with the drug companies for lower prices. That put us all at a disadvantage. Now, with those companies making up for the price disparity by charging all of us Americans more, that's how it worked. Now, President Trump is looking to equalize the global prices of prescription drugs with this new executive order. President Trump says the order could slash drug prices between 30 and 80%. Now, the president left a little bit after signing that order for a very high-stakes Mideast trip, but before he did, he gave us some great word. Idon Alexander, the last American hostage held by Hamas, released, reunited with his family in Israel today. He was a young American-Israeli soldier. He was taken captive on October 7, 2023. We've had his parents on the show right here. Great news there for the Idon Alexander and his family, and another, almost more than 4 dozen prisoners and hostages set free during the Trump years. A lot of them Joe Biden couldn't get out of custody. So really good development there. One last little piece I want to get before I turn things over to my amazing co-host. Today, Congress, between last night and today, Congress released the outlines of that big, beautiful bill. Lots of important things in it. I want to focus on one because I think it's something that's going to get a lot of attention. Medicaid recipients going forward, if they're able-bodied and healthy, will have to work or look for work in order to keep their benefits. That's called workfare. It was a very popular idea 3 decades ago, making a comeback in this bill. One of many, many things that we'll have over at Just the News tonight. You can take a look at it. All right, as I always do at this point in the show, time to bring in my amazing co-host Amanda Head for a lot of other headlines. A lot going on today. Very busy day.
Indeed. Yeah, so we have a lot to get to tonight, but as always, I first want to get to a couple of stories that have been trending over on justthenews.com. The first one involving the Biden administration's ATF. Senators Chuck Grassley and Joni Ernst have exposed through whistleblower reports how ATF officials allegedly misclassified administrative roles as law enforcement positions to pad their salaries and benefits with taxpayer dollars. And despite internal warnings, these officials faced no repercussions. And the whistleblowers say that this abuse of taxpayer funds has been going on for decades. Just another account of corruption in our federal agencies. Let's hope that it gets cleaned up and very quickly by the Trump administration. And we have more alarming info from Senator Chuck Grassley that Just the News reported on today. Whistleblowers disclosed that the Polaris Project, that's the operator of the National Human Trafficking Hotline, they failed to actually protect victims of human trafficking, the whole point of that organization's existence. The whistleblower revealed that Polaris, which was paid by the government, neglected to report critical trafficking tips to law enforcement, including cases involving minors. The whistleblower claims uncovered shocking instances like a March 2025 report of potential sex trafficking and a February 2025 case involving a victim and her young sister, both dismissed without action and without referring any tips to law enforcement, which is what the Polaris Project is paid to do. So you can read all about that over on justthenews.com. All right, John, I'm going to hand it back to you because we have a very important guest for this start of the show. We
sure do. You know, today was a really big day for the president. Before the trip, you've got the big, beautiful bill. You're starting to get the shape of it. You get another hostage released. You get I think a really important deal with China. The markets went nuts today because there's a 90-day reprieve and the tariffs are now in the favor of American companies for the next 90 days. So it worked out really well, but a very important day for the Trump administration. It's almost hard to keep up on all the successes that are rolling up. All right, earlier today, Amanda and I had this incredible opportunity to speak with the new director of the National Institutes of Health. He's a longtime friend of the show, been on it many times, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, but this is his first time as the chief of NIH. Take a look at what he said to us. All right, joining us now, a man who was at that signing ceremony this morning when President Trump signed the order making prescription drugs a lot cheaper for Americans. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, the man at the helm of the National Institutes of Health. Doctor, good to have you back on the show.
Good to be back. Thank you for having me, Amanda. Thank you for having me, John.
Yeah, it's a great honor. Let me ask, I think a lot of people don't realize how unfairly Americans are treated in the drug market. We obviously, American drug companies are successful. They're the leaders in the world, but Americans pay a disproportionate amount of the cost of developing those drugs. How did that happen, and how does this executive order fix that?
Well, it happened almost by accident. The drug companies American drug companies would invent amazing new things. They would go to some European country and say, well, look, we'd love to sell here. And the European country would say, well, you can't sell here unless you charge our consumers nothing, almost like marginal costs. And then they come to the American market and charge, exorbitant amounts of money. And so now you have drugs that are 2, 3, 4, sometimes 10 times more expensive for the same molecule in Europe as it is in the United States. And that's gone on for decades. And all the time we hear excuses, well, look, this is the only way we can afford the research and development. That's what the drug companies would say. But the question is, why aren't our European partners paying for the research and development? Why does it fall to the American taxpayer, the American patient, the American consumer for that? And that's what this executive order addresses.
Isn't he?
Yeah.
So clear. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like it's going to hurt the R&D at all. I want to ask you, President Trump said that 30 to 80% was going to be felt effectively immediately. Does that mean starting tomorrow?
I mean, it's going to take a little bit of work, Amanda. So we have to talk to our partners in Europe. We have to talk to the pharmaceutical firms and make sure they understand what the new landscape looks like. I fully anticipate that we will have action very, very soon, and Americans will start to see the reduction in drug prices. But tomorrow is probably too soon.
Yeah.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah, that'll take a few weeks, obviously. So I want to ask a little bit about what happens with those European countries and Asian countries that have gotten these sweetheart deals. A lot of people say, well, they'll just pull out and not do it, but they really can't live without American drugs, can they?
No, that's the thing. These drugs that we're talking about are at the cutting edge. They save patients' lives. They're really, really important to patient health, many of them. And they have fantastic data behind them as a general matter. And so they're really important, not just for the health of Americans, but health of the world. And the question is, why aren't other rich countries paying their fair share of the R&D costs? Why does it fall to Americans to pay those R&D costs at such high levels so that our drug prices are so much more expensive than everyone else's? It makes no sense. There really isn't a counter argument that I can think of, John.
Yeah. If those countries are that concerned about a premium price for their citizens, then maybe they should subsidize it. I want to ask you how this works out for the health insurance industry. Obviously, a huge cabal within this country. And anytime anything goes in there to stir the pot, there's an entire resettling of these programs. How is that going to work with health insurance companies?
Right now there are a whole bunch of middlemen called pharmacy benefit managers. Their job is to sort of negotiate good prices for health insurers with the pharmaceutical manufacturers. Under this new regime, with this most favored nation kind of idea, where the prices will come down to the lowest levels that we see among developing countries, or developed countries. What need do you have for that middleman to negotiate prices when we already have the drug companies giving excellent prices to the health insurers? The health insurers, the customers of health insurers, the government, which pays for so much of health insurance, and patients themselves will all benefit almost immediately as soon as the prices start to come down, because they won't have to put into their premiums such high drug prices, and patient copays will come down as well. You won't have to pay so much out of pocket when you go to the doctor anymore.
Yeah. Congress promised to rein in PBMs for years and never could. This executive order may do it and eliminate them on its own. It's pretty remarkable. I want to turn to something else because it happened on this show last October. President Trump said he would get rid of gain-of-function research, restore the ban that had been in place a decade ago. He did it. You've been doing a lot of other important things to protect safety at these labs. I think the most underreported story of the last week, the action you took at Frederick, Maryland for a biosecurity lab there. Tell us a little bit about what prompted and what you learned about that incident.
John, I've been in the job for about just a little over a month. About 3 weeks in, I got a report that there was a lab, a BSL-4 lab. That is a high security lab that deals with like really nasty bugs, Ebola, a whole bunch of other bugs, that there had been a safety incident that even in March, even before I arrived. The safety incident involved a contractor cutting a hole in the biocontainment suit of another worker with the intention of getting that worker sick with some nasty bug and potentially spreading it outside of the lab itself. I mean, I've not been scared by anything in this job so far, but except for that when I heard that, my blood just chilled. Yeah. There's an ongoing investigation, but what so far it's revealed is a safety culture going back to the Biden administration where these kind of safety incidents were sort of just hand waved away with no real serious action. I ordered immediately as soon as I heard about this incident that there's an operational pause of all experiments at this lab. At Frederick, Maryland, and that we're not going to reopen it until I'm satisfied that we have a group that can run it with safety first. This is really, really dangerous stuff. And if we're going to play around with these kinds of experiments, it better be at 100% secure lab where the safety culture says that it's more important to get the safety right than to have the science go forward. What you have instead is a safety culture which I view as substandard, and that's why I ordered the close of it immediately. And I'm not going to reopen it until I'm satisfied that we have made fundamental changes in the safety culture of that institution.
What a powerful message.
Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe these labs should live by the adage, better to be safe than sorry. How many other labs in this country are there these types of security concerns about? And is there any type of centralized alert system so that you can get this information faster?
I mean, I'm still looking into that, Amanda. I don't know the answer to your question. This is about a month in the job, and I'm still learning a lot of things about how these labs work. But I do know within the NIH, there are several of these kinds of labs, including a BSL-3 lab here on campus in Bethesda. There's another lab, the Rocky Mountains lab in the Northwest, mountain region. So we're gonna look into all of these, and we're gonna examine the safety culture of all of them. I mean, I think that for the most part, they do excellent work. They are scientists who care deeply about safety and understand the sensitivity of doing work with such dangerous agents. But that's not guaranteed. And as we saw during the pandemic, it's possible for that kind of lax safety culture to wreak catastrophic damage on the world. Just one slip up and you end up with a pandemic that kills, tens of millions of people and costs trillions and tens of trillions of dollars with damage that's still ongoing. It's not a joke. We have to take this really, really seriously. And for every single experiment that's done, we have to ask ourselves, is it worth doing if it has the risk of causing a pandemic like that?
Such an important mind shift that you're affecting across government. Really, really important, Doctor. Real quickly, I know there is a lot of work to be done. A lot of people are wondering, where are we in terms of developing a new pandemic strategy? Because the last one clearly didn't serve us very well. You were one of the most profoundly wise voices when it came to the last pandemic. You started working on preparations to create a new pandemic strategy. Will the government get on board with that? Are they getting on board with that?
Well, that's going to take a little bit of time because I think people are still processing 5 years later the damage done to kids, to the working class, to the poor from all of these lockdowns. We still have such a high level of drug overdoses and mental health issues. I do think that the appetite for that is opening up. I do have one good thing to report, which is President Trump signed a gain-of-function ban last week, which basically means that the kind of dangerous work that very likely led to the pandemic, where the U.S. NIH supported research in Wuhan, China, where the lab accident happened that led to the pandemic, that kind of research and that kind of support for that kind of dangerous research is banned now throughout the government. And the next 4 months, we're going to develop a framework where the public will have a say. If there's going to be dangerous work done, it won't be scientists themselves that decide that the risks are worth taking. And so we're not quite there on the revising our pandemic plans. That's coming, but we are there in terms of trying to stop the kind of research that likely led to the pandemic.
So very important. You are a game changer, sir. Everyone who has watched your work over the last 5 years knew that if you could get into NIH, you'd be a game changer, and you're beginning to change that mentality, that culture day by day. What a great honor to have you on the show today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Amanda. Always good to talk to you all.
Yeah. Yeah, great to have you on. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, more right after these messages. Hey, folks, you've been with me at all over the last 6 months or so. You are probably familiar with the fact that I have a brand new favorite coffee, Wired to Fish Coffee. As you know, I love them not only for their delicious, smooth coffee, which I drink every morning, but more importantly, for their amazing commitment to give back. Wired to Fish Coffee gives back 25% of its profits. That's right, 25% to conservation, to clean water, and things like missions and evangelical outreach, things I care about as a Christian outdoorsman. From river cleanups and initiatives for fish habitat to programs that give people in slums clean water and spread the word about Jesus, Wired to Fish Coffee is in it to make the world a better place. So you can have a cup of coffee and do good with every drink you take. And they've added to their offering. Now Wired to Fish Coffee is available in medium roast decaf, and their much loved brew is now available in 2-pound and 5-pound inflation buster bags for avid coffee lovers like me. I'm excited to tell you that Wired to Fish Coffee has a special offer for the Just the News audience. For a limited time only, they're offering their best-selling medium roast in the new 2-pound bag size at a cost-crunching $21.99 a bag. And when combined with the discount code JustNews, which gets you another 10% off, you get down below $20. That is a great bargain. Head over to wiredtofishcoffee.com. That's wired, the number 2, fishcoffee.com today, and take advantage of this exclusive offer. Order today and make this year one where you align your coffee with your values.
Welcome back, everybody, to Just the News, No Noise. Another very busy week in geopolitics and everything else for the Trump administration. The president is on his way to the Middle East right now, and he also may address the Russia-Ukraine war. So what can we expect to come from this trip? With us now to talk about all of the national security implications of it, former CIA operations officer, founder and president of Lopez Liberty LLC, and also a founding member of the Citizens Commission on National Security, Clare Lopez. Clare, great to have you with us tonight. Perfect timing. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Amanda, and also John, glad to be with you both.
Yeah, good to have you.
We are delighted to have you as President Trump is wheels up heading to Saudi Arabia and then on to Qatar and UAE. Last week, mainstream media was really trying to push this as something that was personally beneficial and financially beneficial for the president, but it's really going to benefit this country, probably in some major investments. Do you think?
Yes, I've heard, of course, those reports coming out of mainstream media sources, to the effect that the president will not be stopping in Israel, for example, this trip, and also citing the recent and very happy deal reached with Hamas to release a dual citizen, American-Israeli citizen, Eden Alexander, who was indeed, in fact, released by Hamas to the Red Cross and then onward from the Red Cross to the Israelis today. But citing things like that to try to drum up this, this image that somehow there's a rift between President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, a canard that was very roundly put to rest by U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. So there's no truth to any of that. But yes, the president onward tonight, going to arrive, I guess, tomorrow in Saudi Arabia, then also United Arab Emirates and Qatar.
So, Claire, when you look out at this, it seems like we're ripe for some sort of announcement of a Abraham Accords 2.0. Maybe Saudi Arabia jumps in. There also was some fascinating discussions over the weekend between Israel and Syria, the new provisional government there. Lots of signs that we could get some more peace deals in the region. What's your expectation for the trip on that front?
Well, certainly, it has long been hoped. I mean, since President Trump's first administration, really going back to when he helped Israel to conclude the original signatories to the Abraham Accords, which include the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco. But the hope since that time that the Saudis would eventually join. Now, that didn't happen over the last 4 years of the Biden administration. But nevertheless, behind the scenes, I think we understand that, first of all, the original Abraham Accords probably never would have reached fruition without the strong backing, again, behind the scenes, but the backing of the Saudis, in particular, the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, often called MBS. So that could be something that comes out of this trip. Other hopes with Saudi Arabia include hundreds of billions of dollars of potential deals, to include the sale of U.S. Weapons to Saudi Arabia, as well as investment by Saudi Arabia with the United States. And also, there are other things that the Saudis want. For example, U.S. support, help with a civilian nuclear program. One can well understand that, I suppose, given the accelerated speed of the Iranian regime's nuclear weapons program of late.
Yeah, good point.
Claire, I think that one of the most groundbreaking aspects of the Abraham Accords 1.0 was that these are nations that don't mirror or even really resemble the United States in many ways. But for these three nations that President Trump is going to be meeting with, Qatar, UAE, and Saudi Arabia, what are some of the landmines that he and his negotiators and team are going to have to dodge when they are having a lot of these sensitive conversations?
Well, I think I would maybe point first to Qatar. Of course, as I said, the United Arab Emirates already is a signatory to the original Abraham Accords, and I think most of us understand that the Saudis were strongly for it behind the scenes. But I would point to Qatar in particular because Qatar, there's no other way to put it, is an adversary of the United States, a strong partner with the Islamic Republic of Iran, with which it shares the exploitation of a great big natural gas field under the waters of the Persian Gulf. But Qatar is home away from home, has been for a very long time for the Muslim Brotherhood, which is, of course, behind much of the chaos on our own campuses and streets, anti-Semitism, Jew hatred exploding, after the atrocities of the Hamas October 7, 2023 massacre. Hamas, a foreign terrorist organization listed terror organization in the United States, funded, armed, backed, trained, not trained, backed and armed, certainly by funding, and in particular from Qatar. So there's that. There were Hamas leadership figures, including the not so dearly departed Ismail Haniyeh, the former political office head of Hamas, who found safe haven and refuge in Qatar for many years until he took an unfortunate trip to Tehran in 2024. We could go on and on. Qatar is the home of Al Jazeera, a Muslim Brotherhood media outlet that reaches with its jihadi messaging not just all over the Middle East, but elsewhere too. And then, of course, we can mention the millions, I should say no, billions of dollars that Qatar lavishes on United States lobbyists, think tanks, universities, and colleges, where, again, as we've said, the anti-Semitism, Jew hatred, assaults, insults against, in particular, Jewish students since October 7th are ongoing, even now as we speak in May of 2025. So all of these things give me pause with regard to the stop in Qatar. And also, of course, there were a couple of recent developments there. One, the Trump family company, led by Don Trump Jr., recently concluded with a Saudi partner, apparently a deal to develop a luxury 18-hole golf course resort in Qatar. And then, of course, the very recent news that President Trump is considering accepting as a gift a Boeing 747 jet from Qatar to be, I guess, outfitted as an Air Force One plane. That really gives me pause. That one.
Claire, I want to just ask quickly. We've got about a minute left. If President Trump, as he hinted today, might drop in Turkey for the talks between Russia and Ukraine, should they occur on May 15th, how big a moment would that be, and what could it do to those sort of talks?
Well, I guess it also depends on whether Vladimir Putin, president of Russia, agrees to show up there.
He has to show up
Turkey.
first. That's right. Yeah.
Although we have the agreement of President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine that he is willing to go. Not sure about President Trump dropping in or not. But the bottom line is that the Russian Federation is an expansionist, neo-empirical regime bent on conquest and domination to reestablish as much as Vladimir Putin is able to do of the former Soviet Union, if not of the Russian Empire itself. And the conditions that he's been laying down, Putin, before agreeing even to a ceasefire, are that Russia gets to keep all the sovereign territory of Ukraine that it's already invaded, captured, and occupied, as well as more in oblasts of southern Ukraine like Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia.
Tell you what, UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Russia, Ukraine, feels like we are on the cusp of possibly some unprecedented peace movement. Claire Lopez, former CIA operations officer and the founder and president of her great organization, Lopez Liberty LLC. Thank you so much for joining us, Claire. Great to see you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, coming up, we have more on that Newark, New Jersey mayor who was arrested for trespassing after protesting at an ICE detention facility. Stay with us for that.
Hey, America, for decades, you've worked hard, paid your taxes, and stood by the values that built this great nation: honesty, accountability, and, of course, faith. But now you're seeing a government that's bloated, reckless, and in many cases, completely unaccountable. The good news, you're not imagining it, and you're not alone. President Trump is back in the White House, taking on unfair trade practices, fighting waste and fraud, and boldly reaffirming our Christian foundations. But even the strongest leaders need support from the people. That's why I recommend AMAC, the conservative alternative for Americans 50 and over who still believe in truth, transparency, and the Constitution. For just $16 a year, you'll receive the AMAC magazine, access to exclusive money-saving discounts, and become part of a community that's holding government accountable. Now go join today at amac.us/justnews. Again, that's amac.us/justnews. Facts matter, your voice matters, and with AMAC, they're both being heard. Welcome back, America. A little breaking news that just occurred a few moments ago. President Trump scored a major win in the federal courts. A federal judge just a few moments ago ruling that the IRS may, in fact, share its data on illegal aliens to help the Homeland Security Department and ICE round up illegal aliens still on U.S. soil. This is a major win. Amanda, the president was looking for this capability because there's nothing like IRS data to target to find where people are, because they usually put their address in. This is a big win. A lot of people tried to block it. Judge said, listen, if you're not using it to pursue them in tax liabilities or other issues, if you're using it for deportation, seems like a legitimate use, go ahead and do it. Turning down an offer for, or turning down a request for a preliminary injunction. The latest in a long line of wins for President Trump when it comes to going after illegal aliens. Big, big win.
Yeah, and this is a big one because this is another tool to identify these folks. And look, at this point, it doesn't matter if you have been living here for X amount of years. I am growing a little weary of the refrain that, oh, you know, that person has been here for 30 years. Great. If they've been here for 30 years, then at some point in those 30 years, they should have at least tried to move down the road of naturalization. And anytime you hear this conversation about illegals and you even mention the word tax, the first thing they say is, but illegal immigrants pay taxes too. on average, there is about a $4,000 differential between what illegal aliens pay into the system and the benefits that they receive out of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree. This is a big win for President Trump. All the tools that they can possibly have to identify these folks and to do it without having to do any strong arming with local law enforcement, the better.
Yeah, no doubt. We're going to try to get Tony Delgado. He's going to join us from Latino Wall Street to talk about the Democrats and they're doubling down. He seems to be in a little bit of bad weather right now, so he doesn't have a signal. Hopefully we'll get him in. But Amanda, over the weekend, just watching the way that this New Jersey ICE detention crash occurred is really amazing. They literally run around the security to get in the building. We would call that illegal trespassing if they weren't members of Congress or a mayor. Then they claim they're roughed up, and then the video footage comes out so they weren't roughed up.
No.
They
were the rougher-uppers, in fact.
Yeah, it's literally insane to watch elected members in political office, a mayor and two members of Congress, Democrats, willing to invade, create an insurrection at an ICE facility just for a publicity stunt. The fallout from this, and I don't understand. I don't know what polling data Democrats are reading, but I'm not finding any sympathy for people who are illegal aliens, and particularly criminal illegal aliens. Any idea what the Democrats, why they keep doing this?
Yes, I know what the polling is that they are reading, and it is Zoomer polling. I have seen enough protests in my former home of Los Angeles of people under, I don't know, about 22 years old with the most ridiculous slogans on their signs. Make California Mexico again. Yeah, because you've done such a great job with Mexico. Let's turn California back into Mexico as well.
Is that a real sign? Mexico?
Yes, yes.
Oh my gosh. What do you know?
There is a younger demographic that sees this as a wonderful cause for Democrats. The unfortunate thing is that he broke the law. Listen, there is a channel on our streaming service that my husband and I watch that's all cops. And I've seen enough episodes with trespassing to know who is the perpetrator and who is the victim here. And those ICE agents and the people operating that facility were not the perpetrators.
Listen, any young person that thinks it's a good idea to leave illegal aliens on our street should sit across from Laken Riley's sister like you and I did, or Jocelyn Ungry's mom. Look them in the eye, look the horror they went through, an avoidable horror, and then tell them it was a good idea to let that illegal alien into the country. I think we could wise up a lot of these young people. I don't know where they get their mindset from, but it's just crazy. Now, you mentioned California. And I don't know what's going on with Gavin Newsom. I don't know if he got hit in the head or something. But today he said, hey, all those illegal homeless encampments that I've been allowing for years, you better clean them up quickly. Now, common sense, popular idea in the rest of America. But in California, it was just accepted on his watch for a long time that these homeless encampments were fine, even though they were traced to fires and arson and crime. Is Gavin Newsom going through some political metamorphosis? Is he on the... some
Listen, all I can imagine is that with the volume of hair gel that I do believe he uses, that it's a big Costco-sized bottle, and he dropped it, and it hit
him
his
in the head. Huh?
Yes, I mean, with respect to the homeless encampments that he is looking to go around California cleaning up, that's nothing new. They do it every year before the Oscars. They do it up in San Francisco before she comes to town. So we're all pretty used to them doing the cleanup before a dignitary comes or before celebrities come. But I think he's eyeing 2028.
Yeah, and this time it's just get rid of him entirely. This isn't a cleanup. This is for the first time I'm ordering. Or are you going to put state funds at risk?
Well, it's going to help President Trump's facility over on the west side of LA.
Who knew that Newsom and Trump would be on the same page on anything? It's just sort of crazy.
It makes me uncomfortable, actually.
Yeah, no, it's pretty wild. One thing before we get the commercial break, I don't think we're going to get to Tony. It looks like the weather has got the better of his signal. The congressional bills that we got to see last night, the reconciliation early draft, and then today the tax bill, a lot of big ideas. Workfare for Medicaid, that's important. No tax on tips gets into the tax bill, renewing the tax steps. The SALT deduction, the local and state tax deduction, going up from 10 to 30,000, but not up to 100,000, which would really benefit rich people. All of those in there, and then when you go through the things that President Trump wanted in the reconciliation bill, a lot of codification of the things that he needs as powers. Now the question is, can Republicans get their vote together and keep enough of them to get it over the finish line? What are you hearing?
Let me tell you, this is a go big or go home situation, and they now have to go even bigger than they did before.
Yeah.
Because I was reading the statistics on this, Sean. President Trump, he was up to 147 executive orders last week, so now he's probably around 150, or actually over 150 now. Republicans have a majority in the House and the Senate, and despite all of those executive actions, Congress has only sent 5 bills to the president's desk to sign.
Yeah.
I feel very sure that the president is aware of these numbers, and I feel very sure that that is a part of the reason why he is continually pressing these folks at the head. What's the quote? There are 3 parties in Washington: Republicans, Democrats, and appropriators, and Republicans and Democrats just bow to the whim of appropriators.
I think that's probably true.
The appropriators have a lot of power in this.
And the Senate's, I mean, the House has passed a lot of bills. The Senate is still the graveyard, despite a switch. We got rid of Mitch McConnell, but not apparently the mindset of do very little work. Boy, the next few weeks are going to be consequential. Republicans are either going to squander or embrace that incredible opportunity that President Trump won for them in November, and we're going to find out soon which it is.
And they have the mandate too. I think they forget that.
Yeah,
they
seem to be
too.
afraid of it. I'm afraid to have it. All right, well, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, a really fun story. Hated by drivers, loved by the EPA until now. The start and step attack in your car. You know, when your car shuts off on its own, then suddenly turns back on at a stoplight, it may finally be thrown out. Mark Morano is going to tell us next why that is. After these messages.
Welcome back, everybody. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin recently announced plans to address the widespread dissatisfaction with automatic start-stop technology in vehicles. Now, this system, which turns off a car's engine when it's stopped to save fuel, ostensibly, and reduce emissions, and a lot of people hate it. So, does it actually do anything, and what is the EPA planning to do about it? With us to discuss is Climate Depot publisher and former senior staff at the U.S. Senate Environment and Public Works Committee, Mark Morano. Mark, great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
This kind of seems emblematic of the green energy movement as a whole. Something, you know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I think that there were good intentions, but it seems like this might beat up your engine a little, wouldn't it?
Yeah, this is something that goes back to the Obama administration. And this is strictly something that is bad for cars, bad for engines, bad for starters, annoying to consumers and drivers. But hey, it's good on it's a little accounting trick that automakers can do on a piece of paper that they then get climate awards for. And it's not a requirement, but they've incentivized automakers to include these in newer cars. So when you have a car, depending on what manufacturer you have, I know Chrysler has it, and I think Ford has it. And some of the foreign cars have it. They literally will stop your car. People who have it know what it is. People who may have an older car have no idea what it is. And essentially, you come up to a light and your engine shuts off. And sometimes your air conditioner will still go running off the battery on a hot summer day, or your heater. And then when you move again, you hit the gas, and instantaneously the engine cuts back on. So in and out all day long. If you're driving, there is a method on most cars to turn it off, but then it defaults back on. Lee Zeldin is now proposing finally abolishing this abomination on vehicles, this stupid accounting trick that has no business being anywhere near an automobile. Let's hope he's successful doing this.
Yeah, it's such a big deal. And I know it's tough on the wear and tear of the car. Mechanics say that. Is there any evidence that this actually saved any emissions or carbon things? I mean, carbon emissions going down 20% the past year, but I doubt it's because our car shuts off at a red light.
No, not at all. It's all about technology. No, in fact, this would be a combination of fuel economy standards and emissions for CO2, and it's just I'm sure. Again, when you say is there evidence, I'm sure they can find some statistical number that's meaningless. But yes, there is a number. If you're going to shut your engine off, most likely it might, but then again, in starting it up, it's kind of like the old light bulb. Is turning off a light actually save it, or is that more wear and tear on the light? Is it going to die sooner? I don't have the answer, but I'm sure the government bean counters came up with some serious accounting tricks to get this kind of incentivized to automakers. And part of the problem is these automakers never push back on this, even the EV mandates. And why didn't they push back? Because most of the time, they were given leniency for regulations, and they were given subsidies and taxpayer money to do things they knew wasn't right, like EV mandates. And I love my favorite still, I think, was Avis Rental Car. the CEO went down on the sword, are going to make our fleet the most rental cars in any. And then, of course, they went belly up and they're getting rid of all the all the EVs now in their rental fleet. So it's just government policy distorts the alleged private sector in this case. And I say alleged because they're working hand in hand, and the automakers never fought back against this kind of nonsense hard enough.
Yeah. John knows my personal story about accidentally renting an EV, and it does not end well. Mark, I want to ask you, America has a reputation for being entrepreneurial and industrious, and because of that, we lead the world when it comes to CO2 emission reduction. But I have a feeling it is not because of this. It is not because of emission testing in Los Angeles. It's not because of solar panels or anything like that. We're doing a great job, but why is that?
Well, very simply, 2 words: AOC, John Kerry. They're the reason. They're the reason the planet is smiling today. No, just kidding. I'm just kidding. It has nothing to do with the Green New Deal, UN agreements, solar and wind panel. The United States is leading the world in reducing carbon dioxide emissions. If you actually care about global warming, we've been doing it right. And it's not through any of the green crap. It's because of one thing: technological innovation, and very specifically, the replacement of coal with natural gas fracking. We have led the world. All the people who shamed us, during the Trump 1, now Trump 2, we're not on the UN Paris Agreement. We're blowing them out of the water in terms of our reductions of CO2 because of technological advancements. That's the way. And I'm not going to say a cleaner earth, because CO2 is a natural substance in the earth. We inhale oxygen, we exhale carbon dioxide, but that's the way you can reduce CO2 emissions, is through technology, not through the heavy-handed government subsidies, mandates. EVs, solar, wind has no impact on it. It's all an accounting trick. By the way, the more the West actually increases the green energy, all it means is the rest of the world is going to pick up that slack, and it will drive carbon dioxide emissions even higher, because you're outsourcing that energy to countries with low human rights, low environmental standards, and not as technologically advanced. China, India, the Middle East, Venezuela. No one beats the Western world for their technological advancements.
Yeah, brilliant. We're about a minute left. Another big development: the shower has been made great again. The toilet may flush with a little bit more water. Dishwashers might get dishes a little clean. Donald Trump did something pretty important, actually reversing people. A lot of people forget this. This occurred under George H.W. Bush, but 30 years later, we got a reprieve, didn't we?
We did, and it's always good to remember here. The Republicans are usually the ones that get us into these messes. You mentioned George H.W. Bush. Disaster. He went to the Rio Earth Summit in September, I believe it was September, campaign, at the end of the campaign in 1992, and signed onto the Rio Earth Summit Treaty, which gave us the entire basis for the UN climate summits. But anyway, George W. Bush also gave us low-flow toilets, low-flow shower heads, low-flow dishwashers and clothing machines. They started the whole process for that. Donald Trump is trying to repeal it. And as your previous segment noted, we need one key to this puzzle. The Republican Congress has to follow suit. Donald Trump is out there doing yeoman's work by himself. Now is the time for all good men in the U.S. Congress to start codifying all of these awesome executive orders that Donald Trump has done. And frankly, it remains to be seen whether the Republican Congress is going to follow through in a lot of this.
I think
just talking about that a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Well, if President Trump is able to get this done, our dishes will be cleaner, and hopefully we'll all have a little bit better fragrance with the stronger water pressure. Mark Morano, Climate Depot publisher. Thanks so much for being here, Mark. Good to see you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, we're going to take a quick break. A few more headlines to get to before we head out for the night. Welcome back, everybody. I want to start at the top of the show and remind people of some of those important notes from Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, someone who speaks with such clarity. It is so obvious why President Trump appointed him. He's a fast mover. I know he said, it's going to take a little bit of time for President Trump's executive order this morning, but he moves fast as well. I loved what he said about rejiggering our pandemic response strategy. It's going to be so important to basically not do anything that we did the first time.
I mean, just think of how much cataclysmic change has already occurred now that Anthony Fauci's out of the way and Jay Bhattacharya is in at NIH. You're getting security checks on these labs that have been able to do this dangerous research with almost no oversight. That story about what happened in the Maryland lab is stunning.
Psychotic.
Someone cut open the protective suit hoping to get them sick and maybe go out of the lab. Yeah, and You're not going to have a China Wuhan situation if you improve these sort of monitoring. Then he talks about pension benefit managers maybe being pushed out of the way by the executive order. Yep. Congress has been talking about that for 20 years, never got it done. These guys get it done quickly. The possibility that there'll be a new pandemic playbook in a year from now, 2 years from now, something that you asked I thought was important. That was a very newsy interview, but it's newsy because instead of just talk and spin, guys like Jay Bhattacharya are doing concrete things to make this country better.
Yeah, and you know, President Trump appointed him because of his honesty during the pandemic. You know, he wasn't going crazy and you know, spewing crazy rhetoric about it. He was very measured, very similar to Harvey Risch, you know, just very measured on all of it and saying, hey guys, why aren't we allowed to ask the questions? Yeah, Dr. McCullough. So many of them who were saying, we just have to reevaluate the way that we've been thinking about this. Let's ask questions. Let's examine our theories. And, you know, as a result, they are now being put at the tops of these consumer health agencies. And I think that American people are going to be healthier for it. I'm very grateful.
Just common sense again. I mean, it is common sense. We should maybe do a security lab check on labs that are using the most dangerous pathogens in the world, but it didn't happen under the last regimes, plural. A good sign that common sense is prevailing. A CEO's mentality is prevailing in a lot of these agencies. It's good.
All right, so Diddy is on trial in New York. Prosecution and defense delivered their opening remarks this morning. The defense seems to be sure he has some strange bedroom habits, but none of them are criminal. I beg to differ, Claudia Schiffer. It certainly seems like there's some crime attached to some of them, but do you think that this is going to be one of those trials like OJ where it becomes about something other than what it really should be about?
I don't know yet. I mean, listen, I think a lot of people, what they've heard already, they find repugnant what this culture was. And by the way, lots of people, not just Sean Diddy Combs, was engaged in this culture. Will it matter if we're fighting with Ukraine and Russia and Iran and nuclear weapons? I don't know how it cuts through. Certainly the media is going to cover it with breathlessness. It'll be interesting to see whether it really resonates at the kitchen table or the issues that have us all concerned about the future are more dominant. But it's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable in Hollywood. That's what I'm guessing. Yeah,
and a lot of people say, you know, this is just endemic of Hollywood. Frankly, it's endemic of this city too, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, Hollywood, Washington, New York. Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay, so the Episcopal Church, who has had a long-standing partnership with the federal government on resettling refugees, they said that the last straw was the Trump administration trying to resettle Afrikaners. These are white South Africans. Many of them, these stories have gone viral, being murdered on their own land as they are trying to farm, and President Trump is trying to resettle them. I saw you're seeing the group of them there, and someone pointed out, oh, look at all those women and children. You certainly didn't see that within the refugee mix from a lot of other countries.
Yeah, listen, I think that this is a big human rights issue, and the fact that the Episcopal Church doesn't want to protect white people from discrimination or harm or meaningful asylum claims, you know, maybe we're better off not having them as a vendor or a contractor. This whole refugee / illegal immigration nonprofit system needs to be turned upside down. It is at the heart of what a lot of people believe is a human trafficking ring, subsidized by you and me, the taxpayers, and under the tax code. But, you know, Catholic Charities, Lutheran Services, the Episcopal Church, and many others, they all have good sounding names, and I'm sure they have even good intentioned people. But if you're allowing and enabling the cartels to bring children to this country under the most horrific and dangerous circumstances I could imagine, you're not doing good for the world. I'm sorry, no matter how, you can't convince me of it. And I just think that whole nonprofit thing needs to be shaken upside down and see what falls out of that tree.
Listen, the road to hell. They all started out as good intentions, and look what they've become. All right, very quickly before we go, in a few Mondays we will have Memorial Day. The original or the initial record was 44 million Americans traveling more than 50 miles. It's a new record at 45 million people who are going to be traveling. Gas prices are down. Everybody's feeling a little loosey-goosey with their gas tank.
401ks are up today. Gas prices are down. The economy's starting to feel like that golden age that we keep talking about. We told people, be patient, that this would play out, and thus far it's playing out exactly like we said. But yeah, I think the fact that people are traveling is a sign that they're a little more confident in the economy than the media lets you know. Yep.
You think it's going to be a ghost town around D.C.? I know a lot of lawmakers are going to be heading out.
could be some ghosts if they don't get this bill done. There's going to be some really angry people in Washington. Yeah, my guess is it empties out, and they're not going to hit the May deadline. They're going to be in July 4th now.
Those lawmakers may be going back to their districts during the recess, but they may be run out of town on a rail and back to D.C. so that they can actually get something done.
Yeah, we got to get the con job out of Congress. I'm telling you.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We're going to be back here tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern here on Real America's Voice. Check back on justthenews.com for constant breaking headlines. See you tomorrow.